music specifically is one of the most dynamic forms of art in terms of finding your own identity.
In terms of my film work, I consider myself to be a producer, cinematographer, and director. I really enjoy creating types of visual media that represent people of color, either on the screen or off the screen, by including people of color on set.
I kind of came into theater and music because I'm really interested in musical theater and the intersection between music and theater at the same time that I really started tackling my racial identity.
Something that I've always wanted to play a character that might look like me but is from a completely different background.
I feel a lot more comfortable dancing about something than I do speaking about things sometimes.
I'm very big in epistemology, which is the study of knowledge and the theory of knowledge and how it's shaped. Particularly, I'm interested in social epistemology and how is it that foreign ideas or concepts are communicated to other people, how we interpret them, and whether or not that actually changes them or whether or not we can understand them.
A touch of the 21st century to Britain's royal family. She's an American who describes herself as mixed race, which came under scrutiny in media coverage of their relationship.
I identify as a mixed race African American and white woman.
I am biracial.
I myself identify as a Black woman.
I identify as mixed.
I guess mixed race. Sometimes it sounds kind of hokey, but I say American.
Identify as Black and Caribbean.
Identify as mixed race.
Identify as mixed race.
Because my father is mixed and my mother's also mixed. So I think I follow.
Because both of my parents' lineages go pretty far back to the sort of very beginnings of America.
My mother is a white German woman. My father was a Black American from Queens.
For the context, I might just say Black American. Because there's my dad always talks about the one drop theory. If there's one drop of Black blood in you, that makes you Black.
Shake it in. Harder. Stop. All right.
It can be really frustrating for people just to totally not see what I identify as when they look at me.
Most of the time I get, I've gotten Dominican, I get Indian a lot. I don't know, anything but Black, really. Which is very interesting.
Looking back at old pictures, there were times that I passed for white.
People are more willing to, talk to me about stuff because I feel like maybe they relate to me maybe more.
I've always been considered a token Black friend or stuff like that, or accepted as if I was white passing.
My older sister is a bit more, she has a much lighter skin tone than I do, so she has what I call mixed privilege, where you're able to identify as being mixed and people just see you as being mixed because of your physical features, whereas I don't have the light skin or the loose, silky, curly hair. And so when people see me, they just see a Black woman, which I don't mind at all because I really I love being a Black woman.
Race has survived into the 21st century despite the fact that our social science, most of our reputable genetic science, and our public policy ostensibly denounces the idea of biological race. It was completely left it behind.
We have the census in the US, and that has definitely reinforced this idea that we need to identify just with one thing. And I've often kind of just checked 4 boxes on the census or just checked other, and I always wonder what does that do for someone?
Another senior at Bard, when I was an underclassman, was doing her senior project on the census, and kind of like took a bunch of people aside and had us kind of go through census like forms from over the years and like try and identify yourself. And so, you know, I'm like going through these things and, you know, I'm like a quadroon on one thing and like a, you know, just it's some crazy shit. And then we were in this meeting and we were talking about like the current format, and she asked me where I was from, and I gave her the little spiel of like, oh, you know, my mom is white and my dad is half British and half Sudanese. And she goes, North Sudan or South Sudan? And I said, well, like Khartoum, so Northern Sudan. And she says, oh, so on the census, as like pertains to the federal government, like you're just white. Like that falls into the North Africa category, which is underneath white. Now, like, it was like a very destabilizing moment because I was like, it felt like this bureau or whatever had the authority to determine my race.
You were raised by your mother and your white grandparents. Does that give you a different perspective, do you think?
I think it probably does. I wrote a whole book about this, and there's no doubt that, you know, I've moved back and forth between the racial divides, not just black-white, but Asian and Latino, and you know, I've got a lot of cultural influences. I think what it does do for me is to recognize that most Americans have good intentions.
I think it means like the future of, I guess, the USA as a whole, because like a lot of different cultures are coming and a lot of different people are mixing.
Well, it definitely is reflective of the so-called sort of melting pot that the U.S. was made famous for.
I don't hate to say it, but it's kind of like a power. Like, I feel like mixed is just one degree away from white passing, and then white passing is like the life cheat code through all of the racial tension and stuff.
I never really feel like I belong anywhere. I think a lot of people think like, oh, you're black and you're white, so therefore you like maybe have two communities, like an extra community that you can identify with. But I think it's actually, a lot of the times it's the opposite.
Growing up, my brother has straight brown hair, blue eyes, pale skin, typical, you know, kid that looks like a white kid. We went to different schools when we were younger, and so I would go to his school and people wouldn't even recognize me as being his sibling, and so I would hang out with, when I would go to his school and we would play in the playground and stuff, we would hang out with two different groups of individuals, yet I'd still be able to infiltrate his group of friends, whereas he would not really be accepted amongst mine.
I think that there's still a lot of dialogue that's happening around the idea of mixed race. I mean, there's a dialogue about race in general, but people are more and more starting to see mixed people as just mixed people, rather than, oh, since you're like this shade, you're black, or since you're this shade, you're white. It's like people are now starting to realize, oh, like, people can be more than one thing.
To be mixed race in the US it's a lot. If I had to be honest with you, it's a lot like an ass, because I mean, if you're not entirely one thing or the other in the US, you just kind of feel like that asshole in the middle. Because I mean, it's shitty because you wanna be able to just kind of be who you want to be and be who you are, and it feels like there's a whole side of you that kind of society rejects. And then when you try and, like, you know, explore that identity or explore like that part of yourself and your ancestry, you are seen, especially if you're mixed race with white, you're seen as kind of like, just, I guess, trading sides, I guess, when in reality it's like, I'm not black and white, I'm both. I'm Chris, I'm just a whole person that just happens to be these things, and I don't want my like identity to be fractured, but usually in the US, people can't comprehend that you can be more than one thing. So for the most part, either in the eyes of America, I'm not mixed race, I'm just black, or I'm black but I'm trying to be white.
It means that in your lineage somewhere that your ancestors or parents were not of the same race or ethnicity or nationality. But in the US, it gets complicated because for me, it's not more so about being mixed race, it's about colorism. Because you can be mixed race and completely dark or mixed race and completely white. So I feel like when it comes to mixed race, if you're not like in that like 10 curly hair, 10 straight hair realm, then it gets very complicated for you because you don't really get to be a mixed race person. It's something that you always have to prove to someone. It's something that you always have to educate someone on, and it gets very tiring after a while, and so you end up just like picking whatever identity someone identifies you as.
The US, they always want to know what you are. They want to label you. And I don't know if that's so that then they can treat you a certain type of way. But it's hard. I think it's changing. I hope it is, because people are more and more bringing light on the issue that, you don't need to just be white or just be black or just be Asian, like, all the things that they have you check. Like, you can be more than one thing, and you are.
To be a black actor, like Danny Glover or Sidney Poitier or Morgan Freeman, just like my dad. But I was never black enough. My dad died last year. And only then did I realize how ignorant I was. The lack of credit I had given my father. My dad was a black actor. But he wanted me to go one step further. He wanted me to be an actor. Just an actor.